Stop right there. I know what you are about to do. The moment they misunderstand you, the moment they lie on you, the moment they accuse you, the moment they take your heart and misrepresent it in public, your first instinct is to open your mouth and explain yourself. You want to call them. You want to text them. You want to post about it. You want to gather the receipts, line up the evidence, build your defense, and make sure everybody knows your side. But let me tell you something very important. God does not need your noise to prove the truth. You think if you say it louder, they will finally understand. You think if you say it longer, they will finally be convinced. You think if you say it clearer, softer, stronger, with more details, more emotion, more proof, more witnesses, more history, then surely they will see what really happened. But here is where you must grow up spiritually. Some people are not confused. They are committed. They are not looking for clarity. They are protecting a conclusion. They have already decided who you are, and now they are only collecting information that agrees with the story they want to believe. That is why over-defending yourself can become a prison, because now your peace is in the hands of people who were never authorized to judge your assignment. Your sleep depends on their opinion. Your joy depends on their interpretation. Your confidence depends on their apology. No, that is bondage. That is not wisdom. That is fear wearing a religious suit. That is insecurity using the language of justice. Noise is the language of insecurity. Silence is the language of trust. Defense says, I must protect my name. Faith says, God can protect what He authored. Do not misunderstand me. Silence is not weakness. Silence is not fear. Silence is not avoidance. Silence is not pretending it did not hurt. Silence is not emotional shutdown. I am not telling you to become passive, powerless, or invisible. I am telling you there is a kind of silence that is governed by heaven. There is a silence that comes from discipline, not defeat. There is a silence that comes from authority, not anxiety. There is a silence that says, I do not have to fight every rumor because I know who sits on the throne. The world teaches you to respond to everything. Heaven teaches you to discern what deserves a response. The world says, defend yourself or they will define you. Heaven says, be still and know. The world says, clear your name immediately. Heaven says, your fruit will speak when the season is right. You have been trained by a noisy generation to believe that silence means guilt. But in the kingdom, silence can mean government. Silence can mean restraint. Silence can mean confidence. Silence can mean you have taken your case out of the court of public opinion and placed it before the judge of all the earth. And I know it hurts. Let us be honest. Injustice hurts because you know what happened. God knows what happened. Your heart knows what happened. But people keep asking you to prove what only God can reveal. They ask you to explain motives they have already questioned. They ask you to defend intentions they have already condemned. They ask you to give evidence to people who have already sentenced you in their hearts. And if you are not careful, you will spend your strength trying to convince people who benefit from misunderstanding you. If this word is meeting you in a season where you are tired of explaining yourself, tired of being misread, tired of being accused, tired of defending a heart that God already sees, then stay with this word. Subscribe and stay connected, because God may be teaching you how to stop defending your reputation and start trusting His government. He may be training you to stop chasing validation and start standing in identity. He may be pulling you out of the exhausting cycle of reaction and into the quiet power of spiritual authority. Because the real battle is not just what they said about you. The real battle is what you believe about God. Do you believe God can vindicate you without your constant interference? Do you believe truth needs your panic to survive? Do you believe your name is safer in your hands than in His? That is the question. Because when you trust God, you do not have to answer every accusation. You do not have to correct every lie. You do not have to fight every voice. God does not require your noise in order to reveal what is true. Now, here is where you must diagnose yourself. Because many times you are not explaining because God told you to explain. You are explaining because fear told you to explain. You tell yourself, I am just trying to be clear. But stop right there. Sometimes clarity becomes control, and control becomes fear. Sometimes what you call communication is really panic dressed in good language. Sometimes what you call wisdom is anxiety trying to manage everybody's perception of you. There is a difference between explaining and over-explaining. Explanation serves truth. Over-explaining begs for validation. Explanation says what is necessary and rests. Over-explaining keeps talking because it is afraid silence will be misinterpreted. Explanation has peace. Over-explaining has panic. Explanation is governed by purpose. Over-explaining is governed by the fear of rejection. Explanation is a tool. Over-explaining is a chain. You know when you have crossed the line. Your spirit knows it. You send the message, then you send another message to explain the first message. Then you read it again. Then you worry that they misunderstood that sentence, so you add another paragraph. Then you start defending your tone, your motive, your history, your heart, your intention, your pain, your tears, your childhood, your whole life. By the time you are finished, you are not communicating anymore. You are auditioning for approval from people who may not even be qualified to understand your assignment. That is bondage. And I want you to hear me clearly. Over-explaining becomes bondage when your peace depends on being understood by people who have already judged you. If they have already sentenced you in their mind, every explanation you give becomes evidence they twist. If they have already decided you are guilty, your tears become manipulation. Your silence becomes arrogance. Your correction becomes attack. Your boundary becomes pride, and your truth becomes another reason to accuse you. You cannot satisfy a heart that is committed to suspicion. This is why you must know the difference between counsel and accusation. Counsel sharpens you. Accusation drains you. Counsel may hurt you, but it helps you. Accusation wounds you and then demands that you perform while bleeding. Correction matures you. Slander distracts you. Wisdom listens. Insecurity performs. Humility receives truth. Fear bows before every opinion and calls it teachability. No, everything that sounds like correction is not correction. Everything that calls your name does not carry God's voice. Do not misunderstand me. I am not telling you to reject accountability. That is immaturity. If you were wrong, repent. If you harmed someone, repair. If you lied, confess. If you made a mistake, correct it. If you need wisdom, receive counsel. If trusted people who love God and love you are saying, "Look at this," then look at it. Do not hide rebellion behind silence. Do not call pride peace. Do not call avoidance discernment. Kingdom people are correctable. Kingdom people are teachable. Kingdom people can say, "I was wrong," and not lose their identity. But do not confuse humility with becoming a slave to every accusation. Do not confuse accountability with giving unlimited access to people who only want to interrogate you. There is a difference between a surgeon and an assassin. Both may cut you, but one cuts to heal, and the other cuts to destroy. There is a difference between a mirror and a hammer. A mirror helps you see. A hammer just breaks what it touches. You need mirrors in your life. You do not need to lie down under every hammer and call it growth. Some of you are exhausted because you have made people's opinions your courtroom. You have made their approval your verdict. You have made their facial expression your weather. If they smile, you have peace. If they frown, you tremble. If they understand, you breathe. If they misread you, you collapse. That is not life. That is captivity. You were not designed to live as a prisoner of other people's interpretations. You were designed by God before anybody had an opinion about you. Before they criticized you, God created you. Before they misunderstood you, God manufactured you. Before they judged your season, God gave you purpose, assignment, identity, and destiny. You are not a rumor. You are not a comment. You are not a screenshot. You are not the version of you that bitter people keep repeating. You are not what they said when they were angry. You are not what they concluded when they lacked context. You are not what they posted when they wanted sympathy. You are what God designed, what God called, what God is forming, and what God is still bringing into manifestation. If you do not know who you are in God, you will spend your whole life begging people not to misname you. And this is the trap of over-explaining. It gives authority to the wrong court. Every time you keep defending yourself to people who are determined to misunderstand you, you are secretly agreeing that their opinion has the power to free you. You are saying, "Until you believe me, I cannot have peace." You are saying, "Until you approve my heart, I cannot move." You are saying, "Until you change your mind, I am still on trial." That is a dangerous agreement. Break it. Break it in your spirit. Break it in your behavior. Break it in your communication. Stop handing your peace to people who did not give you your purpose. The question is not, can you explain yourself? Of course you can. You can explain it 10 ways. You can explain it with dates, details, emotions, evidence, witnesses, and history. But the deeper question is, can you trust God when explanation is no longer fruitful? Can you obey when they do not understand? Can you keep your heart clean when your name is dirty in somebody else's mouth? Can you be silent without becoming bitter? Can you be misunderstood without becoming manipulative? Can you let God be judge when your flesh wants to be attorney, witness, jury, and executioner? That is where freedom begins. Freedom begins when you stop needing every person to see what God sees. Freedom begins when you can tell the truth once, walk in integrity, receive real counsel, correct what must be corrected, and leave the rest with God. Freedom begins when you stop performing innocence and start living righteousness. Because innocence that has to be performed becomes insecurity. Righteousness that is rooted in God can stand quietly. So examine your explanations. Ask yourself, am I serving truth, or am I begging for validation? Am I communicating with peace, or am I speaking from panic? Am I responding to counsel, or am I bowing to accusation? Am I being humble, or am I enslaved? Because God cannot build a secure person on the foundation of public approval. He builds kings and queens on identity. He builds servants on obedience. He builds leaders in quiet places where applause cannot feed them and criticism cannot destroy them. You do not need to be understood by everybody to be faithful to God. You do not need universal agreement to walk in purpose. You do not need every critic to sign a document saying you were right before you move forward. Explain when truth requires it. Apologize when righteousness demands it. Repair when love calls for it. But when explanation becomes begging, stop. When clarity becomes control, stop. When your peace depends on their verdict, stop. Because the God who called you is not confused by the people who misunderstand you. Now, here is the kingdom reframe. If God is your source, people cannot be your final judge. You cannot say, God is my Father, and then live like every opinion is your master. You cannot say, God called me, and then tremble every time somebody misquotes you. You cannot say, God knows my heart, and then collapse because somebody questioned your motive. At some point, your theology must become your stability. At some point, what you say you believe about God must govern how you behave under accusation. The problem is that many of you have promoted public opinion to a position it was never designed to hold. Public opinion is not omniscient. Public opinion does not know the whole story. Public opinion is emotional, unstable, selective, and easily manipulated. It hears one side and forms a verdict. It sees one screenshot and builds a doctrine. It catches one sentence without context and writes a biography. Public opinion has rumors. Public opinion has assumptions. Public opinion has fragments. Public opinion has edited evidence, wounded narrators, angry witnesses, and people who enjoy a trial as long as they are not the one being judged. But the courtroom of heaven is higher than the court of public opinion. Heaven does not need gossip to gather evidence. Heaven does not need screenshots to know truth. Heaven does not need somebody's emotional version of events to understand reality. God sees in secret. God weighs the heart. God knows the difference between what they said happened and what actually happened. God knows the motive behind the action, the pain behind the silence, the manipulation behind the accusation, and the obedience behind the decision nobody understood. That is why you must stop living like your case is being decided by people with partial information. They do not know the tears you cried in private. They do not know the prayers you prayed when you wanted to retaliate. They do not know the restraint it took for you not to expose what you could have exposed. They do not know the cost of your obedience. They do not know what God told you. They do not know what God is forming in you. They only know the piece they heard, the piece they saw, the piece somebody handed them, and the piece their own wound wanted to believe. Let me tell you something. Partial evidence can produce a full lie. A half-truth can become a whole weapon in the hands of the wrong person. That is why you cannot build your peace on the verdict of people who only saw one page of a book God is still writing. If they walked in at chapter 7, they may not understand the pain in chapter 3, the training in chapter 4, the betrayal in chapter 5, or the instruction God gave you in chapter 6. They are judging a paragraph, and God is reading the whole manuscript. And I know your flesh wants to win every argument. Your flesh wants to say, let me explain one more time. Let me prove one more point. Let me show one more receipt. Let me make them admit they were wrong. Stop right there. Some battles are not assignments. Some battles are bait. Some conversations are not doors, they are traps. Some arguments are not opportunities for truth, they are distractions from purpose. If the enemy cannot destroy your assignment, he will try to distract you from it. If he cannot stop your destiny, he will make you defend yourself every day until you have no strength left to build what God told you to build. Do not be ignorant of strategy. The enemy does not always come with destruction. Sometimes he comes with debate. He comes with an accusation that makes you leave your post. He comes with a misunderstanding that pulls you out of prayer. He comes with a critic that makes you abandon your assignment just to protect your image. He knows if he can keep you explaining, he can keep you from executing. He knows if he can keep you reacting, he can keep you from building. He knows if he can keep you on trial before people, you will forget you are already approved by God. Silence, then, is not emptiness. Silence is jurisdiction. Silence says, I refuse to reduce my assignment to a debate. Silence says, I will not spend kingdom energy trying to convince people who are not assigned to my destiny. Silence says, I know which court has authority over my life. Silence says, I have already appealed to heaven, and heaven does not need me to panic. That is not weakness. That is government. That is discipline. That is spiritual maturity. You must understand this. Your purpose existed before the accusation. Your calling existed before the misunderstanding. Your identity existed before the rumor. Your future is not suspended until your critics approve your innocence. God did not pause your destiny because somebody formed an opinion. God did not cancel your assignment because somebody misread your season. God did not remove his hand because people removed their applause. Before they knew your name, God knew your purpose. Before they questioned your heart, God weighed it. Before they opened their mouth, God had already written what he intended to do through your life. So why are you living like their verdict is final? Why are you acting like their disapproval has more power than divine authority? Why are you waiting for people to release you when God already commanded you to move? That is not humility. That is misplaced worship. Whenever you need people to agree with God before you obey God, you have made people too powerful. Whenever you need critics to validate your innocence before you can have peace, you have given them a throne in your soul. Pull them down. Pull down the throne of public opinion. Pull down the idol of being understood. Pull down the altar where you sacrifice your peace every time somebody says your name wrong. You are not called to live on trial. You are called to live in obedience. You are not called to answer every witness. You are called to bear fruit. You are not called to manage every courtroom people create in their conversations. You are called to stand before God with clean hands, a pure heart, and a faithful life. When God is the judge, you do not have to live on trial before people. That sentence must enter your bones. When God is the judge, accusation is not the final word. When God is the judge, timing is not controlled by your anxiety. When God is the judge, hidden truth is not lost truth. When God is the judge, your silence is not surrender. It is trust. You can tell the truth without becoming a slave to the trial. You can be accountable without being available for endless interrogation. You can walk humbly without handing your destiny to human emotion. And if heaven is the higher court, then the first discipline is learning when not to answer. Because every voice that calls your name does not deserve your response. Every accusation does not deserve your energy. Every critic does not deserve access. Every rumor does not deserve a press conference. There is a discipline of holy restraint. There is a wisdom that knows when to speak and when to be still. There is a strength that refuses to be dragged from purpose into performance. So before you defend yourself again, before you answer again, before you spend one more day trying to win a court that was never authorized to judge you, learn rule number 1. Do not answer every voice that calls your name. Rule number 1. Do not answer every voice that calls your name. Let that settle in your spirit. Every voice does not deserve access to your emotion. Every voice does not deserve access to your explanation. Every voice does not deserve access to your schedule.
Every voice does not deserve access to your spirit. Just because somebody said your name does not mean God assigned you to respond. Just because somebody formed an opinion does not mean heaven released you to defend yourself. Just because somebody is loud does not mean they are authorized. You must learn the difference between a call and a distraction. Your assignment calls you forward. Distraction calls you sideways. Purpose requires movement. Offense demands circles. Destiny says, keep walking. Accusation says, come back here and explain yourself again. Vision pulls you into the future. Drama pulls you back into the argument. If you do not discern the difference, you will spend your whole life moving emotionally, but going nowhere spiritually. You will be busy, but not fruitful. Talking, but not building. Responding, but not obeying. This is why many people never finish what God gave them to do. They are too available to interruption. They are too accessible to offense. They are too easily summoned by people who are not carrying the weight of their assignment. If every critic can stop you, then your purpose is not yet governing you. If every accusation can redirect you, then your peace is still too dependent on human approval. If every misunderstanding can make you abandon your post, then you have not yet understood the seriousness of what God put in your hands. Imagine a man building a house. He has the blueprint. He has the tools. He has the foundation. He has the assignment. He knows where the walls must go. He knows where the doors must be set. He knows the house is not for applause. The house is for habitation. But while he is building, people keep walking by from the road, throwing dust, making comments, laughing at the foundation, questioning the measurements, criticizing the materials. Now, if that builder stops every 5 minutes to argue with people throwing dust from the road, the house will never be finished. And that is what some of you are doing. God gave you a house to build, but you keep leaving the construction site to argue with people passing by. God gave you a family to cover, a ministry to steward, a business to develop, a character to form, a gift to sharpen, a life to discipline. But every time somebody throws dust, you drop the tools. You stop praying. You stop planning. You stop creating. You stop healing. You stop leading. You stop obeying. And you call it defending yourself. No, sometimes it is just distraction with your name on it. You cannot fulfill a divine assignment while responding to every human accusation. That sentence is not a suggestion. It is a law of focus.
You do not have unlimited strength. You do not have unlimited emotional energy. You do not have unlimited hours. You do not have unlimited attention. Every unnecessary response costs something. Every argument spends something. Every defensive paragraph drains something. Every attempt to correct a person who is committed to conflict takes strength that was designed for building, leading, healing, parenting, creating, serving, and obeying God. This is what I call emotional leakage. You are leaking strength through unnecessary conversations. You are leaking peace through imaginary courtrooms. You are leaking focus through people who are not even assigned to your future. You wake up tired because you fought battles in your mind all night. You sit with your children, but your heart is still in an argument. You go to work, but your spirit is rehearsing a defense. You try to pray, but your mind is drafting a response. That is leakage. And if you do not close the leak, you will not have enough strength left for the assignment. The enemy understands urgency. He knows how to make distraction sound like emergency. Respond now. Clear your name now. Defend yourself now. Post the proof now. Send the message now. Expose them now. Make them understand now. But hear me. Urgency is not always obedience.
Pressure is not always instruction. A demand is not always a divine command. Everything that feels urgent is not from God. Some urgency is manipulation. Some urgency is fear. Some urgency is ego panicking because it cannot tolerate being misunderstood. Do not let your ego dress itself in the language of righteousness. Sometimes you are not defending truth. You are defending image. Sometimes you are not protecting integrity. You are protecting pride. Sometimes you are not obeying God. You are trying to make sure people still think well of you. Stop right there. If God requires an answer, answer with wisdom. If truth requires clarity, give it with peace. If love requires a conversation, have it with maturity. But if your ego is demanding a stage, deny it. If your pride is demanding revenge, crucify it. If your insecurity is demanding applause, discipline it. Before you respond, you need a filter. Ask yourself, is this person seeking truth or feeding conflict? Because truth has a posture. Truth can ask hard questions without enjoying your humiliation. Conflict just wants more fuel. Ask yourself, is this conversation producing peace or consuming purpose? Because some conversations leave you clearer, cleaner, and stronger. Others leave you agitated, distracted, and spiritually dirty. Ask yourself, is God requiring an answer, or is my ego demanding one? That one question will save you years of wasted energy. And do not be deceived by the fact that the accusation has your name in it. Your name can be in something that is not your assignment. Your name can be mentioned in a room God did not call you to enter. Your name can be dragged into a conversation heaven never authorized you to join. You need discernment. Jesus did not answer everybody the same way. Sometimes he spoke. Sometimes he asked a question. Sometimes he remained silent. Sometimes he walked away. That is authority. Immaturity reacts the same way every time. Wisdom discerns the moment.
You must become disciplined enough to disappoint distraction. You must become mature enough to let some people think what they think. You must become secure enough to allow a false version of you to exist in minds that are not submitted to truth. That does not mean it does not hurt. Of course it hurts.
But pain is not permission to abandon purpose. Hurt is not a command to retaliate. Misunderstanding is not always an assignment to explain. Sometimes the holiest thing you can do is stay at the wall and keep building. Nehemiah understood this. He was building a wall while enemies called him down for a conversation. They wanted a meeting, but the meeting was a trap. They wanted dialogue, but the dialogue was designed to delay. And his answer was not long. His answer was not emotional. His answer was not a press release. He said, "I am doing a great work, and I cannot come down." That is the spirit you need. I am doing a great work, and I cannot come down. I am raising my children, and I cannot come down. I am healing my soul, and I cannot come down. I am building what God gave me, and I cannot come down. I am obeying heaven, and I cannot come down. Some people are not calling you because they need truth. They are calling you because they need access. They need your reaction. They need your energy. They need your attention. They need you to stop building long enough for them to feel powerful. Do not give them that gift. Do not reward every accusation with your presence. Do not make every critic feel like they have a button they can press and you will appear. You are not a machine operated by offense. You are a servant governed by God. So answer what God tells you to answer. Correct what God tells you to correct. Repair what love requires you to repair. But stop giving sacred energy to unsacred summons. Stop letting every voice schedule your spirit. Stop letting every rumor interrupt your obedience. Stop letting every critic rent space in your mind without paying rent and responsibility. You have too much to build. You have too much to steward. You have too much to become. And once you stop answering every voice, you will discover the next layer of discipline. Because silence is not only about refusing distraction, it is about protecting development. When you stop spending your strength on every accusation, God begins to teach you how to guard what He is forming in private. You must learn to protect the evidence of your future while it is still fragile, while it is still hidden, while it is still growing beneath the soil. Because God often hides the proof before He reveals the person. And if you expose the process too early, you may damage what heaven is still developing. Rule number 2. Guard your process while God builds the proof. Do not miss that. God builds proof. You do not manufacture it with panic. You do not force it with noise. You do not produce it by begging people to believe you before the evidence has matured. Proof is not something you scream into existence. Proof is something God grows. Fruit does not argue with the seed. Fruit reveals what was in the seed all along. That is why you must stop trying to prove in one moment what God intends to reveal over a season. Some of you are trying to force a harvest out of a seed that is still underground. You are angry because nobody can see what God showed you. You are frustrated because nobody believes what God is building in you. You are offended because people are judging you by the dirt, but God is developing you beneath the dirt. Listen to me. Seeds grow in darkness. Roots develop underground. The most important part of the tree is formed where applause cannot reach. Everybody celebrates the fruit, but nobody claps for the root. Everybody wants the shade, but nobody notices the underground system that makes the shade possible. Everybody wants the visible blessing, the visible platform, the visible vindication, the visible answer. But God begins with the invisible. He begins beneath the surface. He begins in the hidden places of your motive, your patience, your obedience,
your discipline, your restraint. Before God trusts you with public fruit, He examines private roots. This is where many people fail. They do not fail because they have no seed. They fail because they cannot tolerate the soil. They cannot tolerate the darkness. They cannot tolerate being unseen. They cannot tolerate being misunderstood while they are still becoming. So they keep digging up the seed to show people it is alive. Look, it is growing. Look, God spoke to me. Look, I am not who they said I am. Look, something is happening in me. And every time they dig it up, they interrupt what was supposed to be developing in silence. If you keep digging up the seed to prove it is alive, you will kill what God is growing. That is not deep, that is practical. A seed does not need exposure to prove life. It needs covering. It needs time. It needs pressure. It needs the hidden work of soil. It needs to be left alone long enough for life to break open on the inside, before it breaks through on the outside. And some of you are destroying your own development because you cannot stand the thought of somebody thinking the seed is dead. Let them think what they think. The ground is not a grave just because people cannot see movement. What feels like burial may be preparation. What feels like delay may be development. What feels like silence may be God protecting the evidence until it is mature enough to survive visibility. You call it being hidden. God calls it being covered. You call it being overlooked. God calls it being protected. You call it taking too long. God calls it growing roots. Do not despise hidden seasons. Hidden does not mean forgotten. Hidden does not mean rejected. Hidden does not mean God has changed His mind. Hidden means God is doing a work that cannot be rushed by your emotions or regulated by public opinion. The womb is hidden. The seed is hidden. The foundation is hidden. The root is hidden. But hidden things are not unimportant things. Many times the hidden thing is the thing that determines whether the visible thing can stand. And I know it hurts when people accuse you while you are still becoming. I know it hurts when they judge your process before the fruit appears. I know it hurts when they call you false because they cannot see the root. I know it hurts when they laugh at the soil and do not know there is a harvest underneath it. But do not let their impatience make you abandon your process. Do not let their accusations make you come out before your time. Do not let their misunderstanding pressure you into premature exposure. Premature exposure is dangerous. If you expose a baby too early, you endanger what was supposed to be protected until maturity. If you expose a foundation before it is set, you weaken what was supposed to carry weight. If you expose a process before it is complete, you invite commentary into something that needed covering. There is a difference between secrecy and sacred privacy. Secrecy hides sin. Sacred privacy protects development. Stop letting people call you secretive because you are wise enough to guard what God is still forming. God does not owe your critics a live broadcast of your development. God does not have to show them every prayer, every tear, every lesson, every correction, every private act of obedience. He can build quietly and reveal suddenly. He can train you in the field and anoint you for the throne. He can prepare you in obscurity and prove you in public. But if you keep trying to drag the process into the courtroom of impatient people, you may trade transformation for explanation. Your reputation is not secured by constant correction. Your reputation is often vindicated by consistent fruit. God proves a person by producing fruit through them, not by handing them a microphone to correct every rumor. Let them talk while you grow. Let them assume while you mature. Let them misunderstand while you obey. Because when the fruit comes, the fruit will answer questions your mouth could never settle. Fruit has a voice. Fruit testifies. Fruit reveals the root. Fruit makes arguments unnecessary. That is why you must protect the place where fruit is being formed. Guard your prayer life. Guard your study. Guard your healing. Guard your obedience. Guard your discipline. Guard your circle. Guard your peace. Guard the conversations you allow around your seed. Some people do not have the faith to stand near your process. They will contaminate it with fear, jealousy, suspicion, and small thinking. Show your process to builders, not destroyers. Share your becoming with midwives, not mockers. Everybody who is curious is not qualified. You need people who can honor what is unfinished. You need people who do not need you to be impressive before they can be faithful. You need people who can see dirt and still discern destiny. But do not confuse that with needing everybody to understand. You do not need a crowd around a seed. You need the right conditions. Too many opinions can become a storm over something that needed stillness. Hear me clearly. God often hides the proof while He strengthens the person who will carry it. Because proof has weight. Vindication has weight. Visibility has weight. Fruit has weight. If God reveals the proof before He strengthens the person, the proof can crush the vessel. So He works on your patience. He works on your temper. He works on your motives. He works on your appetite for approval. He works on your need to be seen as right. He works on your ability to stay faithful when nobody is clapping and nobody is explaining you correctly. Because if God is going to prove you publicly, He must first govern you privately. Private government precedes public vindication. Private discipline precedes public fruit. Private surrender precedes public authority. Do not ask God to make your life evidence if you are unwilling to let Him make your character stable. The proof is coming, but first the person must be formed. The fruit is coming, but first the root must be deep. The vindication is coming, but first the vessel must be governed. Stay in the process. Stay under covering. Stay faithful in the dark. God knows how to grow evidence where nobody can see it. Rule number 3. Let character speak louder than correction. Do not miss this. The most powerful answer to false accusation is not always a speech. Sometimes the most powerful answer is a life that keeps producing what the accusation said could never come from you. Sometimes the strongest defense is not a paragraph, not a post, not a conversation, not a public explanation. Sometimes the strongest defense is consistent character over time. Character is evidence that does not need to shout. Character does not panic. Character does not perform. Character does not chase every rumor down the street begging to be believed. Character stands. Character serves. Character keeps clean hands when dirty mouths are speaking. Character keeps showing up when people have misunderstood the reason you came. Character continues to obey God when obedience is no longer impressive to people. Now, hear me carefully. I am not saying truth never needs correction. Do not misunderstand me. There are moments when you must speak. There are moments when clarity is love. There are moments when silence would enable confusion, abuse, deception, or disorder. But you must discern the difference between correction that serves truth and correction that feeds your ego. Because correction may silence a moment, but character silences a pattern. Correction addresses words, but character reveals nature. Correction can answer what they said today, but character proves who you are tomorrow, next month, next year,
and in the season when the noise has died, but the fruit remains. Some of you are addicted to correction because you have not yet trusted the weight of character. You think if you do not answer immediately, the lie will win. You think if you do not defend yourself quickly, heaven has lost control. That is fear talking. That is not wisdom. A lie can travel fast, but it cannot grow roots in the soil of consistent fruit forever. Rumor has speed, but character has endurance. Noise has volume, but fruit has authority. And authority does not have to compete with volume. If every lie can pull you out of alignment, then your enemy does not need power. He only needs provocation. If every accusation can make you stop praying, stop serving, stop loving, stop building, stop obeying, then your purpose is being governed by your pain. If every misunderstanding can move you from your post, then people do not need to defeat you. They only need to irritate you. That is not maturity. That is emotional captivity. You must become harder to move. Not hard in your heart, but stable in your spirit. There is a difference. A hard heart cannot love. A stable spirit cannot be manipulated. A hard heart refuses healing. A stable spirit refuses distraction. A hard heart becomes bitter. A stable spirit becomes disciplined. God is not calling you to become cold. He is calling you to become governed. So what do you do when they lie? Keep showing up. What do you do when they question your motive? Keep serving. What do you do when they twist your words? Keep walking clean. What do you do when they misread your silence? Keep building. What do you do when they celebrate your pain? Keep forgiving. What do you do when they wait for you to fail? Keep producing. Not performing, not pretending, not pandering, producing. This is silent proof. Silent proof is not weakness. Silent proof is discipline under pressure. Silent proof is coming back with the same integrity after your name has been mishandled. Silent proof is refusing to become what they accused you of being. Silent proof is not letting their dishonor make you dishonorable. Silent proof is not letting their bitterness make you bitter. Silent proof is not letting their poison enter your bloodstream. Because the real danger of false accusation is not just that people may believe it. The real danger is that you may become controlled by it. You may start living in reaction to it. You may begin making decisions to prove them wrong instead of obeying God. You may choose relationships, build platforms, make announcements, and take actions from the wound of being misrepresented. And anything built from a wound will eventually need healing. Do not let pain become your instructor. Silence does not mean it did not hurt. Stop right there. Some people think if you are silent, you are unaffected. No, silence can be the evidence that you have chosen government over expression. Silence can be the proof that your spirit is stronger than your impulse. Silence can be the place where you take your pain to God instead of handing it to the crowd. It hurt, but it did not lead you. It cut you, but it did not command you. It disappointed you, but it did not disciple you. That is maturity. Maturity is not the absence of pain. Maturity is pain without surrendering your assignment. Maturity is being wounded and still refusing to wound back. Maturity is being misunderstood and still refusing to manipulate the story. Maturity is having the evidence and still waiting for God to tell you when to release it.
Immaturity must be seen immediately. Maturity can be hidden and still be whole. Let your character keep a record that their accusation cannot erase. Let your consistency build a testimony that their rumor cannot destroy. Let your obedience become evidence that their opinion cannot overrule. Your fruit will outlive their rumor. Your consistency will outlast their campaign. Your obedience will become evidence that no accusation can erase. Because when God grows fruit through a life, people eventually have to wrestle with the contradiction between what they heard and what they see. They said you were false, but fruit keeps coming. They said you were proud, but service keeps flowing. They said you were finished, but obedience keeps producing. They said you were dangerous, but healing keeps happening around you. They said God had left you, but favor keeps finding you. At some point, your life will become an argument your mouth never had to make. But character needs time. Do not miss the transition. Character is powerful, but character is proven slowly. Fruit does not appear because you are emotional. Fruit appears because roots have been faithful. Many people lose their vindication because they cannot wait for God's clock. They have character for a week and demand evidence by Friday. They walk clean for a month and expect every critic to apologize by Sunday. No. If character is going to speak, you must give it time to gather volume. So keep walking, keep serving, keep forgiving, keep building, keep obeying. Let the record grow. Let the fruit mature. Let the pattern become undeniable. Because God knows how to make time testify. And when time begins to testify, no rumor can stand against what God has consistently produced through your life. Rule number 4. Stop trying to make God hurry. This is where your silence is tested at a deeper level. Because if we are honest, you do not only want God to prove the truth. You want Him to prove it now. You want Him to prove it in front of the people who doubted you. You want Him to prove it in the way that satisfies your pain, answers your embarrassment, heals your ego, and makes everybody who misjudged you feel what you felt. Stop right there. That is not always faith. Sometimes that is revenge wearing church clothes. Sometimes that is impatience using spiritual language. Sometimes you are not saying, God be glorified. You are saying, God, make them look stupid for what they said about me. And God is too holy to let your wounded ego manage His timing. He is too wise to let your pain set the calendar. Divine vindication comes on God's schedule, not your emotional deadline. You must understand this. The wait is not a waste. The delay is not denial. God's silence is not God's absence. Just because heaven has not spoken publicly does not mean heaven is inactive privately. Just because God has not corrected their narrative yet does not mean He has accepted it. Just because the accusation is loud today does not mean truth has lost authority. God does not panic because people are talking. God does not become nervous because a crowd has formed. God does not rush because your feelings are tired. Some of you are measuring God's faithfulness by how quickly He makes people apologize. That is a shallow measurement. God may be doing something deeper than clearing your name. He may be cleansing your motive. He may be strengthening your patience. He may be training your spirit to trust Him when the room is still confused. He may be teaching you that your peace cannot be held hostage by public understanding. If God vindicates you before He stabilizes you, you may become addicted to vindication instead of anchored in Him. Do not miss this. In a courtroom, timing matters. Evidence presented too early can be dismissed. Evidence presented without foundation can be questioned. Evidence presented before the witness is ready can be weakened. But evidence presented at the appointed time, in the proper order, under the right authority, becomes undeniable. God is not just concerned with evidence. God is concerned with timing, order, authority, and purpose. He knows when truth will carry the most weight. He knows when fruit will be mature enough to speak. He knows when the room will have no choice but to recognize what he has been building. You are trying to rush the witness stand, but God is still arranging the case. You are trying to throw evidence at people who are not ready to discern it. You are trying to force a verdict before the appointed time. Sit down. Stay faithful. Let the judge manage the court. The court of heaven does not operate on the emotional clock of wounded people. God can wait until every false voice has finished talking, until every rumor has spent its strength, until every critic has exhausted their accusation, and then he can allow your life to stand up as evidence. But when you try to make God hurry, you become dangerous to your own promise. Abraham had a promise, but impatience produced Ishmael. Do not miss the principle. You can produce something visible that was not authorized. You can create movement that did not come from obedience. You can manufacture a result that looks like progress but carries conflict because it was born from impatience. Every visible thing is not a God thing. Every opportunity is not an appointment. Every open door is not divine permission. Some things are only open because your flesh kicked them down. That is what happens when you force vindication. You post what God told you to hold. You expose what God told you to cover. You confront what God told you to release. You build an alliance God never assigned. You make a move from pressure and then ask God to bless what He never instructed. And now you have something visible, but it has no peace. It has motion, but no authority. It has attention, but no oil. That is Ishmael. It came from a promise, but it was not the promised method. Faith is not just believing God can vindicate you. That is elementary. Faith is trusting when He chooses to do it. Faith is trusting how He chooses to do it. Faith is trusting where He chooses to do it. Faith is trusting through whom He chooses to do it. Faith is trusting that if He does not answer the people you wanted Him to answer, He is still righteous. Faith is trusting that if He does not vindicate you on the platform you imagined, He is still faithful. Faith is trusting that if He lets time pass while people misunderstand you, He is still working all things together for your good. God is not confused by the accusation. God is not intimidated by the crowd. God is not sitting in heaven wondering how to rescue the truth from a rumor. He is not late concerning your purpose. He is not behind schedule because people lied. He is not struggling to find a way to prove what He knows. Before they accused you, God knew you. Before they misread you, God called you. Before they formed their opinion, God formed your assignment. Your life is not governed by their misunderstanding. Your life is governed by divine intention. So stop pacing in your spirit. Stop checking the clock of vindication every morning. Stop saying, "When, God? When will they see? When will they know? When will they admit it?" That question may be honest, but it cannot become your master. Keep obeying while the question is unanswered. Keep serving while the timeline is hidden. Keep building while the evidence is developing. Keep walking clean while the apology is delayed. The apology may never come the way you want it, but obedience will never be wasted. And here is the harder truth. Sometimes God will vindicate you without giving you the satisfaction your flesh wanted. He may bless you instead of explaining you. He may elevate your fruit instead of confronting your critics. He may give you peace instead of a public apology. He may make your life fruitful in front of people who still refuse to admit they were wrong.
Can you handle that? Can you be vindicated by God without being celebrated by the people who hurt you? Can you be free without hearing them say, "I was wrong"? That is where timing becomes surrender. If you trust His timing, you must release your need to manage the outcome. You cannot keep saying, "God, I trust you," while trying to control the courtroom, the witnesses, the evidence, the verdict, and the audience. Trust means you step back. Trust means you obey the last instruction. Trust means you let God decide when silence has finished its work. Trust means you stop trying to drag tomorrow's proof into today's pain. Wait with discipline. Wait with clean hands. Wait without bitterness. Wait without manipulation. Wait without manufacturing your own vindication. Because when God brings truth forward at the appointed time, it will not need your panic to support it. It will stand. It will speak. It will carry weight. But before that day comes, you must pass the test of timing. And the test of timing always leads to the hardest command of all. Release the need to be seen as right. Rule number 5. Release the need to be seen as right. This is the place where God stops dealing with your enemies and starts dealing with your ego. This is where the spotlight turns from what they did to what you still need. Because sometimes you do not want justice. You want satisfaction. You want the pleasure of watching the people who doubted you lower their heads and admit they were wrong. You want the room to know. You want the record corrected in public. You want the same mouths that spoke against you to now speak for you. Stop right there. That may feel righteous, but sometimes it is pride wearing the clothes of justice. Sometimes it is revenge with a Bible in its hand. Sometimes it is not truth you are fighting for, it is ego. And God will not let your ego sit on His throne. Vindication restores truth, but revenge feeds pride. Vindication brings order, but revenge demands pain. Vindication belongs to God, but revenge belongs to the wounded ego. And if you cannot tell the difference, you will call your bitterness discernment and your pride conviction. Righteousness seeks order. Pride seeks applause. Truth wants freedom. Ego wants spectators. Purpose wants fruit. Offense wants a stage. Do you see the difference? Truth does not need everybody watching. Ego does. Truth can be satisfied when God knows. Ego is not satisfied until people know. Truth can rest in divine authority. Ego must have a crowd, a comment section, a witness stand, a moment, a platform, a scene. Ego says, "I want peace." But what it really means is, I want them to feel embarrassed for misjudging me. That is not freedom. That is another prison. You escaped their opinion, but now you are chained to their apology. You escaped their accusation, but now you are waiting for their admission. You escaped their judgment, but now you cannot live unless they validate your innocence. That means they still have power. If your joy requires their confession, they are still governing your emotional life.
If your peace depends on them saying, "I was wrong," then your peace is not rooted in God. It is rented from people who may never pay you back. You are not truly free until you can obey God without needing your critics to admit they were wrong. That is maturity. Can you be free if they never apologize? Can you obey if they never understand? Can you build if they never clap? Can you serve if they never correct the story? Can you walk in purpose if the people who misrepresented you keep acting like they were right? That is not a small test. That is a kingdom test. Children need immediate recognition. Sons can obey under authority. Immature people need to be seen as right. Mature people need to be found faithful. Do not misunderstand me. I am not saying truth does not matter. Truth matters. Order matters. Justice matters. But your obsession with being publicly proven right can become a subtle form of self-worship. You can become more committed to clearing your name than carrying your assignment. You can become more devoted to correcting people than becoming whole. You can spend so much energy managing how you are perceived that you stop developing who you are. And that is exactly how the enemy traps gifted people. Not always with sin, sometimes with explanation. You were not manufactured for pettiness. You were not designed for endless arguments. You were not created to spend your life defending yourself before people who have already decided what they want to believe. You were created for dominion. You were created for character. You were created for leadership. You were created for purpose. Your Creator did not place destiny in you so you could waste your strength chasing the approval of people who benefit from misunderstanding you. That is beneath your design. Pettiness is too small for your spirit. Bitterness is too heavy for your assignment. Endless argument is too cheap for your calling. Public proving is too shallow for the weight God placed inside you. You cannot carry dominion and revenge in the same heart. You cannot walk in authority while being enslaved to applause. You cannot lead people while your own spirit is being led by offense. At some point, you must decide, do I want to be right or do I want to be free? Because there are moments when being right is not the same as being healed. You can be right and still be bitter. You can be right and still be bound. You can be right and still be angry every morning. You can be right and still be rehearsing conversations with people who have moved on. You can be right and still be spiritually immature. God is not only trying to prove that they were wrong, He is trying to make sure their wrong does not become your master. Release it. Release the need for the dramatic apology.
Release the fantasy of them calling you and saying everything you wanted to hear. Release the picture in your mind of everyone finally seeing what you saw from the beginning. Release the courtroom you built in your imagination, where you win, they cry, the crowd claps, and your ego finally feels paid. Release it. That courtroom is exhausting you. That stage is draining you. That invisible audience is stealing strength from your real assignment. Let God be God. Let Him decide what needs to be revealed, when it needs to be revealed, and who needs to see it. Let Him correct what must be corrected. Let Him cover what must be covered. Let Him expose what must be exposed. Let Him restore what must be restored. Your job is not to manage every eye. Your job is to obey the instruction. Your job is to keep your hands clean. Your job is to keep your heart free. Your job is to build what He told you to build without turning your pain into a performance.
And if this is the truth you are choosing to live by, then make it a declaration. I will let God prove what I cannot explain. Not as a slogan, not as religious language, not as something you type and forget. Say it as a breaking of agreement with accusation. Say it as a funeral for your ego. Say it as a release from the need to make every critic understand you. I will let God prove what I cannot explain. That means my identity is no longer controlled by accusation. My obedience is no longer delayed by misunderstanding. My peace is no longer held hostage by people who refuse to see truth. This is the final rule, because all the other rules depend on it. You cannot stay silent if ego is still in charge. You cannot guard your process if pride needs attention. You cannot let character speak if offense needs a microphone. You cannot trust divine timing if your flesh is demanding immediate applause. Silence only works when it is joined to surrender. Silence only works when obedience is stronger than the need to be seen.
Silence only works when you stop using God's name to support your need for human validation. Now the teaching must become a decision, not an emotion, not a moment, not a temporary inspiration, a decision. Will you keep explaining, or will you obey? Will you keep defending, or will you build? Will you keep waiting for them to admit they were wrong, or will you let God make your life the evidence? Because the next season will not be carried by noise. It will be carried by discipline. It will be carried by fruit. It will be carried by character. It will be carried by the quiet strength of a person who no longer needs the crowd to confirm what heaven already knows. When you stay silent, your life becomes the evidence, not your argument, not your explanation, not your emotional speech, your life. Because when you stop trying to prove yourself, God can make your life the proof. And that is the kind of proof no critic can control, no rumor can cancel, no accusation can bury, and no enemy can manufacture against you. So hear the 5 rules one more time, and do not hear them as ideas. Hear them as instructions. Do not answer every voice that calls your name. Guard your process while God builds the proof. Let character speak louder than correction. Stop trying to make God hurry. Release the need to be seen as right. These are not suggestions for sensitive people. These are requirements for people under assignment. If you are going to carry purpose, you cannot be governed by every opinion. If you are going to carry weight, you cannot keep handing your peace to every accusation. If you are going to walk with God, you must learn that heaven does not need your panic to establish truth. God does not need your noise to prove what is true. He can use your fruit. He can use your peace. He can use your consistency. He can use your promotion. He can use your healing. He can use your endurance. He can bless you so quietly and so thoroughly that the people who misjudged you will have to wrestle with the evidence of what God has produced. They may not admit it. They may not apologize. They may not celebrate it, but they will see it. Fruit has a language. Peace has a language. Consistency has a language. Healing has a language. Endurance has a language. And when God teaches your life to speak, your mouth does not have to keep fighting for the microphone. Now I want to challenge you. For the next 7 days, do not defend yourself where God has not instructed you to speak. 7 days. Not forever,
not as a religious performance, as discipline. When the impulse rises to explain, pause. When the message is typed and your finger is ready to send it, pause. When your mind starts building a courtroom in the middle of the night, pause. Take that energy and pray. Take that energy and build. Take that energy and heal. Take that energy and work. Take that energy and forgive. Take that energy and obey. Stop feeding the accusation with your attention. Stop feeding the wound with rehearsal. Stop feeding the ego with imaginary victories. Put that strength back into your assignment. The lie may be loud today, but truth has endurance. Accusation may travel quickly, but fruit has authority. Rumor may run, but it gets tired. Character keeps walking. Noise may gather a crowd, but consistency builds a record. Do not be intimidated by the speed of falsehood. God is not limited by speed. God works with time, with seed, with roots, with seasons, with harvest. What is loud is not always lasting. What is hidden is not always weak. What is delayed is not always denied. Let them talk while God works. Let them assume while God forms. Let them misunderstand while God matures you. You are not random. You are not forgotten. You are not abandoned in the misunderstanding. You are not some accident trying to survive the opinions of people. You were designed by God. You are under divine government. Your life is not being held together by public approval. Your destiny is not at the mercy of their interpretation. Your Creator knows how to protect what He designed. He knows how to preserve what He called. He knows how to vindicate what He authorized. He knows how to bring truth forward without borrowing your fear. And if this word helped you return to peace, then stay connected to teachings that call you back to kingdom identity and purpose. Share it with someone who is tired of defending what God is already able to prove. But do not just share it, live it. Stay silent where God says, "Be still." Speak only where God gives permission. Keep your hands clean. Keep your heart free. Keep your spirit governed. And let your life become the answer.